Chapter 3, Supply and Demand. In this video, we're going to go through some examples of supply and demand graphs. I'm going to show you how various people draw their graphs. They can be slightly different depending upon your drawing ability. You're not going to be judged on your drawing ability, so you don't need to use a ruler or anything like that. But there's varying types of supply and demand graphs. And we're also going to look at the various shifts. So there's 4 possible shifts, 2 possible shifts in demand, and 2 possible shifts in supply. If you remember those supply curve and demand curve shifters, those are the things that shift the lines either to the right or to the left, and they are affecting the entire market supply or market demand. So let's look at demand increases first. Here you'll notice that both of the axes are labeled. The vertical axis is labeled price and the horizontal axis is labeled Q for quantity. Our original lines are labeled S and then the first demand line D1. So the supply line is the upward sloping, the demand line is the downward sloping. I also want you to label your equilibrium. Here the original equilibrium is labeled price 1 and quantity 1. So we know that that's where we're starting out. When you have an increase in demand, it means that one of those shifters of demand is going to increase how much the buyers want to buy at all possible prices. So the entire line is going to shift to the right. When that happens, we are going to get an increase in price, and we're also going to get an increase in quantity. So on these graphs, the supply and demand lines are going to shift due to an event, and that's what your shifters are. Those events are the cause. But the effect on the graph is what happens to the change in price and to the change in quantity. The second thing we're going to look at here is demand decrease. So this is when the entire demand line or market demand goes down, meaning that customers at all possible prices would like to buy less of this good than they were before. You'll notice that the person who drew this graph decided to draw the line or the shifted line, demand 2, in a new color. A lot of times that helps students to identify the difference between the original graph and the change. If that helps you, feel free to do it. When demand decreases or shifts to the left, the effects of that are a lower price and a lower quantity. Remember, quantity is both the quantity bought and sold. Here's a graph that shows us a supply increase. Now, this particular graph, the person has drawn the lines so that they're curved. You can draw the line straight or curved. It does not matter. In real life, they're probably curved. That's a little more true to the way that real markets work. You'll notice that they're both labeled. We have 2 supply lines. First one labeled supply 1, and we have the original demand line. Your original equilibrium is price 1, quantity 1. When we increase the supply, remember that means suppliers or producers at all possible prices are increasing the quantity or the supply that they're making. So when the supply line shifts to the right, the effects of this particular shift mean that price in the market is going to go down and the quantity bought and sold is going to rise. The last of our 4 shifts is a supply decrease. I know it looks a little funny here. When supply shifts to the left, this supply 2 line looks like it's above supply 1. But when we say supply or demand increase or decrease, we're talking about horizontally along the horizontal axis. So here, the supply 2 line is actually to the left of supply 1. This means that suppliers at all possible prices wanted to reduce the amount of goods that they were producing. And when we decrease the supply line, the effect of that is that prices will go up in the market and quantities will go down.